Good afternoon, Saitlanders. How are you? We trust that you are very well. I just made a video, some of you may have seen it, about goats, dogs, lion hunting, miracle cures and so on. And I ended up getting so lost in thought that when I looked down and saw that it was 15 minutes, I realized that it was far too late for me to get to the real point of the video that I had wanted to make. So this one now is going to be about that. And for the life of me, I cannot remember how I was going to connect the two themes. There was a connection. Anyway, without further ado, the day before yesterday, it was reported in my broadband by one Miles Illich. The day before yesterday being Monday the 27th of March 23, that Eskom could implement stage 11 load shedding this winter. Stage 11 is 16 and a half hours a day. Do you recall I made a couple of videos in which I explained how you work it out, and you can find this on the internet. You never mind the reasons behind it. Let's just keep it simple. So, you know, if you want an explanation of why they do it this way and why not that way, you're not going to get it. I'm sorry. I want to keep it simple so that everybody can understand it. So, the long and the short of it is, you take the stage, say stage 2. You multiply it by 6, you get 12, and you divide it by 4. And that should give you the number of hours of blackouts on any given day to which that stage applies. So stage 11 would be 11 times 6, which is 66, divided by 4, which is 6 divided by 4 is 1.5, and 60 divided by 4 is 15. So 16 and a half hours a day. Right. Even say stage 9, in other words, this guy, Miles Illich, of my broadband, is telling us that the stage 11 is coming, and I'm going to explain it, read the rest of the story in a minute. Even if he's wrong, is my point, and it's only stage 9, it's going to be 13 and a half hours a day. My point being that even if it's stage 9, we're going to be massacred by blackouts this winter. The reasoning is as follows. South Africa could be subjected to as high as stage 11 load shedding, despite Eskom saying that stage 6, even stage 6, is unlikely over the winter months. This is according to Virtual Energy and Power Director Clyde Mallinson, who analyzed historical load shedding data and the condition of Eskom's coal power plants to make rotational power cut predictions. So, it waffles a little bit, and I'll kind of distill it for you. What this guy did was, he looked at what Eskom was able to deliver in years gone by relative to what they were theoretically going to deliver. So he took an average for each year of what theoretical capacity there was. All of the plants are running, or 50% of them are running, or most of them are running, but they're only running at 75%. And therefore, Eskom should be able to provide tomorrow X, according to this theory. But what he worked out is that, in fact, whatever Eskom theoretically could provide was invariably not what they were actually able to provide. And that Eskom's forecasts and predictions and promises were based on the theory, not the practice. So he's saying, this guy from Virtual Energy and Power Company, Clive Mallinson, that if you extrapolate that into 2023, and you build a model of what is going to be the theoretical capacity. Obviously, he doesn't have a crystal ball, binoculars, looking into the future, but it's likely that Eskom is going to be able to have a theoretical capacity of this average in June, that average in July, that average in August, week by week, day by day, highly technical, highly analytical, lots of facts, figures, data, and statistics. And he then said, well, relatively speaking, what was the difference in years gone by? Let's say it was 20%. So Eskom would say in July of last year, we don't believe that we'll have stage 5 load shedding for the next 2 weeks. And then along would come stage 5 or 4, whatever, I beg your pardon. What is the difference in percentage terms? And against that model for this forthcoming winter, he says they're only going to, if years gone by are anything to go by, they're only going to be able to generate this much capacity. You two dogs. You two, yeah. Judith. No. Here, come and say hello to these nice people. Come here. Come. Come on. So, he's saying if they can, Judith, no. Judith, I don't want to get cross. He's saying that according to this mathematics, what they're going to be able to generate will result in stage 11 load shedding. He's not saying it's a certainty. He's saying if, Judith, please, it's Louis Hotting's Malinois. She really is, I have to say. I was told that she was a special dog, not the Malinois breed, she. And she really is something quite special, but she's a handful. Judith? Yes, good girl. Now she's come between my legs. So he's not making promises. He's not even predicting anything. He's not saying it's going to happen. He's saying if you go by actual performances versus hoped for performances in years gone by, and you work out the difference, and you take that difference and you apply it to this year, knowing what we do of the state of affairs of the plants at present, you can make certain assumptions. And the worst case scenario that you can assume, reasonably assume, is 16 and a half hours a day. And that, ladies and gentlemen, should be enough to make your hair stand on end. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring something up here onto my other monitor. So, I just want to give you some practical advice as a non-expert. I really am not an expert in this. I'm not an expert in electricity. In fact, I'm not an expert in prepping. There are so many Suidlanders who are better prepared than I am. I'd go so far as to say that I'm one of the worst prepared people that I know. And that's not a disaster, because I have some preparations that very few other people have thought about. And I know that they're going to be of tremendous value. But on the face of it, if you came to my house and said, okay, big mouth, show us your preparations. Judith, don't. You might come away thinking, geez, he's the spokesman of Suidlanders and those are his preparations? Wow. Suidlanders on average tend to be very, very, very well prepared. And I'm fairly new to this. I kind of came out of the blue after very specific incidents in my life, and started preparing at a time when I was bankrupt. I was much of a business. It was a shocking disaster. We were misled by a lie and a promise and a contract that had no meaning because there was no substance to the contract. We were promised a supply of beef from Botswana by the Botswana Meat Commission, and in fact, they'd already made that promise to somebody else. Oh, it was terrible. Whew. So for 2 years that I was involved with Sakelanders, I didn't have a cent to my name. It was, and I kept on being approached by my previous industry, special projects to manage, big things all over the show, and I stubbornly refused. I would rather starve than go back to it. So the point being, I'm not a great prepper. I haven't been doing it for that long. When I started doing it, I didn't have the money to do anything meaningful. But there are some things that very few people are thinking about that are going to become extremely relevant. Anyway, so as a kind of a layman, if we're going to be dealing with 16 and a half hours a day without electricity in winter, what do you do if you can't spend 100 grand on an adequate solar system? And what do you do if you can't install a gas geyser the day after tomorrow? What do you do if you can't buy a proper gas stove, to cook for a family of 4 or 5 for 6, 7, 8, 9,000 rand? You can now prepare and freeze meals that can be rapidly reheated in a microwave oven. Obviously, if you get home from work and that's when you're about to have 4 hours of power cuts, well, that doesn't help. But there will be days when it is the answer. You can purchase just a single gas stove plate and a small gas cylinder. In other words, if all you want to do is get through winter and you don't have much Tom, you can get one of those small things. They're a couple of hundred, I don't know, maybe 300 rand, something like that. And one of those small KDAC gas cylinders. You're in for well under 1,000 rand, and there you can make, I'll give you a random example that would apply to me. Boil rice, quick sticks, because that gas flame is hot. Take the rice off, put a pan on, sieve the rice or strain the rice, put oil in the pan, throw the rice in with a few eggs, and you've got egg fried rice. It really is that easy. Buy cheap trading store type lanterns. If you can, and if you want to, expand an existing solar system. Perhaps buy the components for expanding your solar system now rather than during a period of crisis. Buy a simple basic UPS unit to keep wireless internet and cell phone chargers running. That's a very clever idea. I didn't fully understand it. My friends John and Narina do that. They have other solutions, but they do that. And it was fairly recently that I cottoned onto how good an idea that is, because a decent UPS, uninterruptible power supply, those batteries for computers, UPS, a decent one of those is not terribly expensive, and it keeps the vital stuff going. What is vital? If you've got complete darkness, it ends up becoming, it's not food, because realistically, you're going to buy a hamburger on the way home, or you're going to have a sandwich, or you're going to say, I can't afford a hamburger, I'll get a big bag of chips for the family, or whatever. But without wireless and without phones in pitch darkness, there's not much you can do except read by candlelight and ruin your eyes. Whereas if you've got wireless, if you've got the internet and your phone is charged, boredom, communication, a whole large segment of the spectrum of your life after hours is catered for. Even if you're one of those people who hates people being addicted to their phones, it's something to do in pitch darkness. And something that I do, consider using slow cookers to safely cook meals in your absence during the times that electricity is available. Now, I know that that's not a politically correct thing to advocate, leaving stoves on when you're not at home. But the reality is that we all leave things running when we're not at home. Fridges, freezers, computers, big screen televisions, geysers, electric geysers. That circuit is open. That electricity is flowing. If it shorts and burns down the house, it won't short and burn down the house in a different way than a stove would short and burn down the house. It's an electrical circuit. They're identical. An electrical circuit with a resistor. So I'm not saying you should be reckless. I am saying that, if you're going to leave on 12 or 5 appliances, leaving on a 6th that doesn't draw much power and functions very slowly is probably not ultra high risk. And I do that all the time. I put a slow cooker on, and I cook off my solar system, which is a whole different proposition to what we're talking about. But I'm saying I know that it works. So, for instance, if you left for work and you knew that there would be just 4 or 5 hours of electricity during the day, you could probably figure out a way to put a meal in that would cook for that long. Obviously, if you're away for 9 hours, it's difficult to control it. But if you've got kids coming back from school, if you've got a spouse who is, comes home an hour earlier from work than you do, goes to work an hour later than you do, if you have a reliable domestic servant, there are ways. I'm just trying to spitball, as the Americans say. Spit in some ideas that may be helpful to other people. But I tell you what, if we go into 16 and a half hours a day of blackouts, this country's done for. Absolutely done for. I'm not saying that Oomsina van Rensburg's Nacht van die Langmesse is going to occur this winter. I am saying, how will small businesses that shut down then recover? Will it open up 3 months later? How will large businesses that shut down recover? How will we ever get our employment rate back under 50%, unemployment rate under 50%? I'm talking about the expanded definition of unemployment, i.e. people who are unemployed who would like a job. Simple English. So the actual unemployment rate, not the stupid 38% that these people debate in the media, that is meaningless, because it's a contrived and euphemistic, understated, a contrived and euphemistic definition. It's false. It makes me so angry that the government, with the connivance of the experts, misleads the public on these matters. Anyway, guys, one other thing I wanted to mention is, if we have blackouts of, say, 12 hours a day, it will be almost impossible for municipalities to keep their reservoirs full, the water reservoirs on the hills in the suburbs. So you should be cognizant of the likelihood of water shortages. And I don't have any clever answers for you. If you've got the money, yeah, buy a JoJo tank, buy a big one, buy 3 big ones. It's all about the money, isn't it? I don't have the money to take myself off the municipal water grid. I would like very much to do so, because I gather through the grapevine that they're going to start installing prepaid water meters, and I don't want to have one on principle, because it's a way to guarantee payment, which is good if you're not Renosterberg Town Council in the habit of stealing all of the money all of the time. I don't want to aid and abet that. It's not about not paying my way. It's not about not paying my fair share. It's about not aiding and abetting African National Congress theft. Anyway, I don't know. I don't have clever answers. But there's one thing that I can tell you that I've learned in Van der Kloof, since we've had all of our electricity problems that have translated from time to time into water problems, and that is that having a couple of 20-litre containers of water, drums of water, iskopo, is, it's a very basic solution, but there are those people who do that, and there are those people who don't do that, and I can tell you which of those two groups it is that whines and moans and complains on the WhatsApp groups. Yeah. It's those who get warned, do nothing about it, and then don't have water, and battle for 2 days, and bleat like stuck pigs. Because they smell, and they're sticky and uncomfortable, and they can't sleep at night because they feel grimy, when in fact, to obviate that is easy. It's not a perfect solution, but it is very easy to obviate that, to prevent that from happening, and that's to use a cloth, a face cloth. It's not a great solution, but it works. If you take your time and invest 3 or 4 or 5 liters in the job, you can do a fair job. Anyway, guys, I don't know what to tell you, but I think we are going to see some drama over winter. If this guy's forecast is accurate, even half accurate, and 60 million people in this country who are already fed up to here don't have electricity and water for however many hours a day. I think we're going to see ructions. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks very much for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Goodbye, and God bless all of you.